Sometimes people say difficult things come in what number? Come in threes. Have you heard that before? Difficult things come in threes. I was listening to a talk program on the radio some time ago, and there was a bit of discussion about this, and they said, I'm not sure it comes in threes or it comes in multiples of threes. So 3, 6, 9, it seems like that sometimes, doesn't it? As we think about Job from last time, my goodness, what a difficult time he had. And we're going to come into this second challenge as he is experiencing it. For the non-Christian, the question is, if there is a loving, all-powerful God, then why does God allow whatever? Clearly, even the Christian can ask that as well. But often it's the challenge of the non-Christian. Either he doesn't care or he's incapable of doing something about it. That's often the thought. For the Christian, maybe it's, if I am a child of God and God is my Father, God should protect me from all the storms of life. Why doesn't He? It's a reasonable question. Why does it seem, from the believer's perspective, that unbelievers have it so easy at times, right? We do that. We do that. Let me give you a brief summary for those who weren't here last time, 2 weeks ago when we started looking at this. Everything is, by the way, going up on our YouTube channel, so you're welcome to catch up there as well. As we looked at chapter 1, we saw Job as a man of great character, and we'll look at those details again in just a couple minutes. He had great wealth, great influence. As a matter of fact, the Scriptures called him the greatest man in the, do you remember what direction it was? The 4 options are north, south, east, or west. The greatest man in the east. Greatest man in the east. What a label. The greatest man in the east. Satan, the master accuser, was there at that meeting as God had gathered the angels. And the accusation was to Job that the only reason Job was faithful because you, God, protected all of his stuff. Remember? Put this hedge around all of Job's things, and you protected him. That's the only reason Job is faithful to you. And that plays as a key part throughout the whole book. So I need you to remember that. Satan said, let me get at him, and I promise you he will curse you to your face. You remember that bit? We'll see that again here in just a second. God said, okay. But you can only get to his things. You can't touch the man himself. Now remember, Job's things included his children, which was very difficult. We'll touch on that as well. The encouragement, I think, hopefully that we took away last time, was that God allows all this for a purpose. The problem is, sometimes, often, we don't see the purpose. And that's the hard bit. That's the tough bit. And there are things that happen behind the spiritual curtain. I'll use that phrase, spiritual curtain, that we don't know. Quite probably there's discussions and things going on in the spiritual world, which is real, by the way. Do you believe that? Do you believe angels are real? Do you believe Satan's real? Spirit, all that is real. Eric, so why can't I pick up and touch? Well, it's different. It's different. Doesn't mean it's not real. We're given very few times in the Scripture where the spiritual curtain is pulled back and we can see into and behind that curtain. It's a rare thing, but it's powerful when we see it. This is one of those times. So we're going to quickly come into Job chapter 2, and we're going to take a look at the title on what we're going to call, if you see it on your paper, Job Again? Really? As we look into this particular chapter. So we're going to look in the first few verses here, verses 1 through 3, and Dooney did a marvelous job reading it, but let me quickly read it again so we can kind of remind ourselves of what that particular bit is. Again, so you see the word again, straight away we say, again from what? Well, this has already happened once. Again, there was a day when the sons of God, meaning the angels in this context, came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it." Do you think if Satan did that then, do you think he's doing it now? You better believe he is. You better believe he is. Verse 3. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil, and still he holds fast to his integrity." Mark that word, put it up there, put it here. That also is going to play a big, big part in all of this. "Although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause." So here it is, verses 1 through 3, God's challenge. God's challenge. And I've got a word here, sort of the first little fill-in bit, déjà vu. Now, I'm looking to Jacques and Emmanuel and André. Is that a French term, déjà vu? Okay. What does it mean literally? Oh, hold on now. No, we're talking to French speakers now. Okay? French speakers. What does it mean literally?
If we trustfully word by word, it's just already seen something that...
I already seen. Okay. Yes. So our understanding is correct, but we have some expert French speakers here, so I thought it would go right to them. Something seems familiar. And if you read those first 3 verses and you remember last time, it is almost word for word what we had seen prior. Virtually identical. Virtually identical. Now, here's one thing I wanted us to remind ourselves about Satan. I didn't bring this up last time because I wanted to touch on it this time. Notice what it says about Satan. God says, "Satan, where you been?" He said, "Well, I'm roaming here and there, to and fro, all this kind of thing." What does that tell us? That tells us that Satan is not, I'm going to use a word, are you ready? Satan is not omnipresent. Does anyone remember back from some years ago what omnipresent means? He is not at the same place, he is not everywhere at the same time. However, our loving God is. Isn't that marvelous? Why Satan has to go here and then he says, "I'm done there, I'm going to go there." Yes, he's got helpers, unfortunately. But God is all-powerful. God is all-knowing. God is all-present, everywhere, all at the same time. Eric, how does that work? I don't know. But God's God and I'm not. I'm sure glad that's the way it is. So we know we have this evil that's lurking about. We've got the flesh that's against us. We've got the sinfulness that's against us and Satan himself. So there's lots of enemy systems that are out there. But we've got this account going on. And the same thing happens. God says, "Satan, where you been? Here or there, roaming around." But then Job comes up. God says, "Have you thought about Job?" "Yeah, I thought about him." What happened? We all know what happened. Remember? Fire of God came down, destroyed this. One thing after happened, boom, 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 boom. And with a matter of who knows how long, a short time, Job lost everything. Now, we read that in a matter of seconds. But my goodness, how awful. And I've talked to parents who've lost a child. And it's a tragedy to lose a child or to lose a parent. It's tough. It is tough. I remember 13 years ago when my mom passing away. And thankfully I was there, but boy, it is tough. But I can't imagine what it would be in a matter of hours maybe for Job to lose everything. Absolutely everything. But God comes in and he rebukes Satan. Yes. He rebukes Satan. And he says, he still holds fast to his integrity. Although you, Satan, incited me, you egged me on, you encouraged me to be against him, to destroy him, and we're going to touch on these things now. The idea is that despite Satan's best efforts, and remember, God said you can touch his things, but don't touch the man himself. God always has Satan on a lead. Satan cannot do anything that he wants. Can I tell you that again? Satan cannot do anything that he wants. So if you, as a believer, are in some testing time, there's a purpose and a reason for it. Eric, what is that purpose? I don't know. Often it's to strengthen us. God may have another purpose, but Satan does not have free reign. God is always in control. God always has Satan on a lead. Here we see another situation again, and we'll touch on that in just a moment. So despite Satan's efforts, Job maintains his integrity. And that word, then it says that he maintains. The idea is that Job holds on to his integrity even stronger than before. Why? Because he was tested. And that's what happens. Anytime that we're tested, there's one of two things that happen. Either you lose the plot and you run away, or, number two, you become stronger. So my challenge to you and to Eric is that when those time comes, you may be in one right now, it may be tomorrow, it may be next week. Stay the course. Don't let Satan win. Become stronger. Become stronger. That's what happened to Job. Now, it's interesting that he says that he still holds fast. God says this. He still holds fast to his integrity. To his integrity. That's a word. That's a word. Eric, what does integrity mean? Well, believe it or not, it's the same word that God uses to describe, and it's translated as blameless. Remember those four qualities. Blameless. Blameless is the idea that Job is the same. He's consistent. He's not one day a strong believer, and on Tuesday he's down in the dumps and said, God's rubbish. He is consistent. Doesn't mean he doesn't have problems. But his faith is consistent. Now I've got a picture here. If you could, I'm sorry. I got my little clicker thing, don't I? Yeah. Got a little picture there. We use the word integrity in different ways. Okay? If we say a building has integrity, what does that mean? That means it's a strong building. Now, if you look at this building, I'm not sure if you can see this. I've got a little light here. Can you see these bits right here? Maybe tough on the back. All these cracks right here. Now, all of this may be good. All this other that's off to the right-hand side of the picture over here may be good. All this over of it may be good. But because you've got that crack, what could potentially happen? A building could come down. Why? It doesn't have integrity. It's not consistent throughout. So the challenge for us is to have integrity. The challenge for us is to be consistent. So I'm going to ask you to remember that word, that idea, as we go throughout our study and look at Job. God says, you incited me, you challenged me against Job, but Job has maintained his integrity even despite Satan's accusation. He said, you wanted me to destroy him, and that word destroy means to swallow up. So he wanted Job gone, entirely gone. Not just a little bit out of the way, he wanted Job gone. And can I say that if you set your mind and your eyes on Christ, I think I can say with authority that Satan wants you out of the way as well. Satan has two plans. Plan number one is to keep you from coming to faith. That's plan number one. Plan number two, that if you have become a Christian, he wants to make you as ineffective as possible. He wants you out of the way so he can do his work. So let's decide as a group that no, I'm not going to let Satan win. I'm not going to move out of the way. I'm going to stand right in his path, and I'm going to do everything I can as a believer to have integrity, to do what God has called me to do, and whatever that is for you in your own life, and maybe as a church together, that we can stand for Christ. Is that hard? Yep. It's hard. It's hard. And Job discovered that. But then we're going to move along now to God's challenge, part 2. God's challenge, part 2, verses 4 through 6. So Satan answered the Lord and said this. Well, I can imagine Satan doing, well. Skin for skin. We'll get to that in just a second. Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. Wow. That's pretty rough. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. Have you heard that one before? He said that before, didn't he? Why, if you let me touch his stuff, he'll curse you to your face. And Job proved Satan wrong. Satan comes up with the same story, same plan. Verse 6. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand. He is in your hand. Do what you want. Wow. But, again, he's on the lead. Spare his life. Spare his life. Let's think about that now. This phrase in verse 4, skin for skin, it's difficult. This is the problem with language and trying to get language from one to the other. Skin for skin. There's debate on exactly what that means. It's tough, it's difficult to know. In the book of Job, there's many words that only occur one time, which makes it difficult because you don't have something to compare it up with. Let me just give you a little example. If I came up with the word badouge, made up word, badouge. Eric, what does badouge mean? I could say something like this. I could say, I'm going down to Asda, to the big Asda, there by Lakeside, and I'm going to buy a badouge. You may say, Eric, that doesn't help out very much, because Asda has a lot of things, right? However, if I said, I'm going to go down to Asda and buy a badouge that is the same color as I'm going to pick, who can I pick on today? I'm going to buy a badouge that's the same color as on today. White. What am I talking about now? I'm talking about color on her little jacket there. Because now I've used it in a sentence that explains what it is, but in Job there's often words that are used once, and so it's difficult to know exactly what it means because this was written, we're talking 3,000 years ago. All right? You understand what I'm saying? So that's what makes some of the words difficult in Job, and we have to try to fish around and put things together to understand what they mean. So, when we come to this thing, skin for skin, there is a couple of possibilities. I think, number one, it could be a skin sacrifice, skin for skin, like for like. Because Job clearly understands a sacrifice. Why do we know this? Because Job made sacrifices for his children, right? Remember chapter 1 when they're gathering together and having their parties, maybe they sinned, and Job did what? He gave sacrifices, hoping that they would be forgiven for whatever sin that they had done. It could be. It could be that the lives and the value of Job's children and servants were nothing. It's almost like Job saying, well, skin for skin, it's nothing. Their lives don't mean anything. Because we have the same sort of thing. Don't we say, well, it's only skin deep. What does that mean? It's nothing. But then we have another phrase that said, you got to have a tough skin, right? Got to have a tough skin. What does that mean? That means you got to be able to, people say things, but Go on anyway. Don't let things bother you. Have a tough skin. So we do the same thing. So we can't moan against Job. So what does it mean? It almost for sure meant that Job's loss of his family, of his children, meant nothing. Satan's accusation to Job this time said, Job, you are selfish. The only thing you really care about is yourself. The loss of your children means nothing. It's skin. That's all that it is. Was that a pretty tough accusation? You better believe it. Do you love your children? Of course you do. Would you give anything for your children? Of course you would. Of course you would. So when Satan came up to Job and said, Job, your children mean nothing to you, that accusation was awful, was horrendous. Job, the only thing you care about is your health, your life. But I tell you what, God, I tell you what, if you would let me get to the man, get to Job, touch his bone and his flesh, why, I promise you, he will curse you to your face. And that is the challenge. God, put down your protection. For sure, he will curse you to your face. Then God turns around and says, literally, he says, Satan, he says, here he is. It's almost like God is presenting Job. Here he is. Have at it. Have at it. Eric, doesn't that show that God does not love Job? No. He's still on a lead. God still has control. We may not understand all the whys and wherefores, but Satan said, God said, but you cannot take his life. Cannot take his life. The irony is unbelievable. And actually, when he said, he's in your hand and you're not allowed to take his life, the wording actually shows that he said to Satan, but you have to guard his life. The one who attacked his family, took all of his children, took everything. Then God is saying, okay, you can touch the man, you can take his health, but you have to guard his life. Not just not take his life, you have to guard his life. I can imagine Satan walking by. Fine. I love it. But then we come down to this next little section. Job's physical suffering. Verses 7 through 10. And Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd, a piece of pottery, to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. We'll stop there for just a second. Satan attacked Job. That's clear. Eric, what is this boil? Most would agree that it's some form of leprosy. By the way, did you know that leprosy is still a thing today? Yeah. It still happens. Unbelievable. So leprosy is a skin disease. You have these incredible growths and nastiness beyond belief. And so Job, it seems like, was taking a piece of pottery and trying to provide a bit of relief for himself. Could have been the whole idea of even self-harm, like we understand today. I never thought about that before, but it could have been that Job was cutting himself to try to provide a little bit of relief from the pain that he was going through. As he sat among ashes, that's a sign of mourning. All those things indicate the reality of Job's suffering. But then we come to his wife. Now hold on. Job's wife, and she's not named, she gets so angry. Ladies, can I ask you this? If you were there in the shoes of Job's wife, how would you react? What would you say? What would you do? Notice what she says. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Do you still claim that you're blameless? Do you still claim that you're consistent?" Job, curse God and die. Eric, I thought everything in the Bible was everyone supports one another and loves one another, and they all have hugs together and wonderful, all these kind of things. Bible's real life. I can imagine his wife. She just lost her 10 children. 10 children. All at one go. She lost her source of, their business is gone. They didn't have they didn't have welfare. They didn't have the NHS. All this, nothing. In a blink of an eye, everything was gone. Why are you maintaining your integrity? Why are you claiming you're blameless, Job? What have you done? And this is the first indication that his wife was there and saying, Job, come on now. You must have done something to deserve this. And that's going to be the theme throughout the entire book. What have you done, Job? What have you done? My babies are gone. Our income is gone. Your health is gone. Now, can I offer you a bit of comfort right now? When the entire world may look at you as a guilty person, the marvelous reality is that God is the one that knows your heart. God knows the truth. And whatever the situation is, what a wonderful, wonderful comfort that is. God knew the situation. God knew what was happening behind that spiritual curtain. Did Job know what was happening? Did Job know anything about those meetings in heaven? No. Did his wife know anything about those meetings in heaven? No. Only God, Satan, and the angels. That's it. That's it. Curse God and die, she says to Job. The word actually means, the word curse that's translated there actually means, is the word that means bless. Can you believe that? Bless. So she was using that word as a bit of play on words. Bless God. It'd be the facial expression. Bless God and die. Just admit to God what you've done is wrong, and Job just shove off. Shove off. So in actuality, for that little chunk of time, Job's wife was almost being an advocate for Satan. She was being the in-between person between Satan and Job. Job, just pack it in. Give up. Admit what you've done. Something in your life is wrong. Look what has happened to our family. Look where we're at. We have to be very careful now. Please don't judge Job's wife too harsh. No one has lost, to my knowledge, I don't think there's anyone here who has lost what she has lost in the time that she has lost it. But beware, beware. Satan wants to use us as his tools. Just like I believe that he was trying to use his wife as a tool to get to Job. Jesus said to Peter in Luke chapter 22, he said, Peter, Satan would sift you as wheat. Satan wants to destroy you. Satan wants to use you, possibly even to destroy the other disciples. Satan wants to use us. That's why we need to have integrity. That's why we need to be strong. And we come to this last phrase now, Job's reply. Notice what he says. Possibly one of the most amazing verses in the entire Bible. Possibly. What does he say? He said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. Let me explain that in just a second. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. The word that's translated foolish there gives the sense of godlessness. He says, dear, don't be like one of the... Now, remember in Proverbs, it compares what? The foolish person with the wise person. The foolish person would be the unbeliever. The wise person should be the believer. Job says, don't be as a foolish person. Don't be as a godless person. Remember that God gives us, but God can take away. He gives and takes away. He gives and takes away. But still I'm going to say, blessed be your... I told you this was going to come up in that song. Told you. I think it's one of the most profound statements when Job said, why should we not receive evil? Now, not in the sense of sin, but in the sense of harm. Why should not we receive harm? Why do we say when God gives, oh, blessed be the name of the Lord, but then when God takes away, we shake our fist in anger against God? But Job said, you know what? God gave and God can take away. In all circumstances, I'm going to say, blessed be your name. And in all of this, Job did not sin. So, I'm going to ask you now, and here's the challenge. This is tough. This is not Christianity 101. This has got to be Christianity 401 or something, way up there, like year 3 or year 4 at uni, something like that. So here's the question. What is my reading on the, you ready? You believe there's such a thing, a Jobometer. Ever heard of that before? I found this. It's amazing. Here's my Jobometer. Okay? So it goes from when life comes at us, and we get angry, shaking our fist up at God and say, how dare you, to not happy, excited, but God, you give and you take away. But I'm still going to bless your name. So where are you on the Jobometer? Where are you? And that's our challenge for today. Because I said earlier, I'm not sure what you may be going through today or tomorrow or this week or next week. But if you're standing for Christ, I promise you, something is going to be happening. Let's decide today that I'm going to be consistent, that I'm going to hold my integrity, that my Jobometer is going to be pegging to the right-hand side.